3 signatures. That's all it took to destroy her. Or so he thought. Picture this. A freezing January afternoon, 52nd floor, Manhattan. A woman signs away 10 years of her marriage without looking up once. Her husband smirks. His lawyer whispers, pathetic. But what they didn't see, the smile she was hiding. Because 29 days from that moment, her ex-husband's $3.2 billion empire would collapse. And she was the only person on earth who could stop it. 30 minutes after signing those papers, a black Bentley pulls up. A billionaire she hasn't spoken to in 7 years has been waiting for her. He knows her secret. He offers her $2.5 million. But he has his own dark agenda, a ticking time bomb, a hidden pregnancy, a mother-in-law who will kill to protect her dynasty, and a wire that will either save her or get her killed. This is the story of the woman who signed without looking up. And what happened next will leave you breathless. Elena Hartford sat motionless at the mahogany conference table on the 52nd floor of Rothstein and Associates in Manhattan's financial district. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the January afternoon sky hung heavy and gray over the city, the kind of colorless winter day that made even gleaming skyscrapers look dull and lifeless. She could see her reflection faintly in the polished wood of the table, a ghost of a woman in a simple navy dress from Target that she had bought 3 years ago, back when she still had access to the joint checking account, back when she still believed her marriage might be salvageable. Her hands were folded in her lap, perfectly still, fingers interlaced so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Her eyes were fixed downward on the papers spread before her, 47 pages of dense legal text that would dissolve 10 years of her life into nothing more than a filed document in some courthouse basement. She had not looked up once since entering this room 20 minutes ago. Not when David Rothstein, Michael's divorce attorney, had made his snide comment about her arriving in an Uber instead of a car service. Not when his paralegal had smirked while organizing the signature pages. Not when Michael himself had walked in, trailing the scent of expensive cologne and entitlement. Across from her sat Michael Hartford, her soon-to-be ex-husband, her former everything. He wore a Brioni suit, charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes, fresh from a Forbes photo shoot that morning, where he had been featured in an article titled Manhattan's Rising Real Estate Titans. His Patek Philippe Nautilus watch, worth $180,000, caught the afternoon light every time he moved his wrist. Elena knew the exact price because she had researched it 2 years ago when he had bought it, trying to understand why he needed a watch that cost more than most people's annual salary. He checked it now for the 3rd time in 5 minutes, the gesture that telegraphing his impatience as clearly as if he had spoken aloud. "Are we done yet?" Michael asked, his voice carrying that familiar edge of barely contained irritation, the same tone he used when restaurant service was too slow or when Elena asked him to help with household tasks. "I have a 6 p.m. flight to Turks and Caicos. Amber gets anxious when I am late." Amber, the name landed in the room like a slap. Michael's 24-year-old girlfriend, a social media influencer with 2 million Instagram followers and a lifestyle built on photographing herself in expensive locations. Elena had discovered her existence 6 months ago, when Amber had posted a photo captioned, "My New View," from the bedroom of the penthouse Elena had designed. Standing in front of the custom built-in bookshelves Elena had spent 3 weekends measuring and planning. The photo had shown Amber in one of Michael's dress shirts, her long legs bare, her smile radiant. Michael had not even bothered to deny it when Elena confronted him. He had simply shrugged and said, "You let yourself go. What did you expect?" David Rothstein cleared his throat, the sound practiced and professional and utterly devoid of human warmth. He was a man in his 50s with silver hair and cold eyes who specialized in high-net-worth divorces, which meant he specialized in helping rich men strip their wives of everything they deserved. "Just the final signature, Mr. Hartford. Mrs. Hartford needs to sign the spousal support waiver on page 43. Michael leaned back in his leather chair and looked at Elena with an expression that somehow managed to combine condescension, impatience, and complete disinterest. "Come on, Elena, let's not make this dramatic. You get the cottage in Connecticut and the Honda. I keep the city, the company, the investment portfolio. It is generous considering you have not worked a day since we got married." The big lie. the central fiction of their marriage. Michael had told this story so many times over the past 7 years that Elena suspected he actually believed it now. Elena does not work. Elena never contributed. Elena was dead weight I carried out of the goodness of my heart. But Elena remembered differently. She remembered 2016, both of them in their final year at Columbia Business School, studying for the same financial modeling exam. She remembered Michael calling her at 2 in the morning, panicking because he could not understand cap rates and internal rates of return, could not grasp the fundamental concepts that would make or break his final grade. She remembered walking him through the formulas step by step, patient and thorough, until he finally understood. She remembered him graduating with honors, partly because of that exam, partly because of the dozen other times she had tutored him through material he could not grasp alone. She remembered 2018 through 2024, 6 years of her life spent with her laptop open at 3 in the morning while Michael slept peacefully beside her, building spreadsheets, creating financial models, developing the proprietary valuation algorithms that became the backbone of Hartford Properties. She remembered her voice on recordings that Michael would later present to investors as evidence of his own brilliance. No, Michael, the cap rate should be 6.2%, not 8. You are overvaluing by at least 30%. The market will not support those numbers. She remembered her handwritten notes, pages and pages of analysis and strategy that became his pitch decks to wealthy investors. She remembered creating the entire intellectual infrastructure of his company while he took meetings and played golf and collected accolades. She remembered doing it willingly at first, believing they were partners, believing her contributions mattered even if her name was not on them. She remembered the slow, crushing realization that he did not see her as a partner at all. She was a resource, a tool, useful but ultimately replaceable. But Michael had forgotten all of that, or perhaps he had never valued it enough to remember. To him, work meant being visible, being in boardrooms, being photographed for business magazines. The invisible labor of actually building something, the unglamorous work of spreadsheets in financial analysis at 3 in the morning, that did not count as real work in his worldview. Elena reached for the fountain pen David Rothstein had placed in front of her, a heavy Mont Blanc that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. Still did not look up, still kept her eyes fixed downward on the signature line. Rothstein smirked at his paralegal, a young woman with perfectly straight, blonde hair who had been shooting Elena pitying glances all morning. She is not even reading it, Rothstein whispered to Michael, not bothering to lower his voice enough to prevent Elena from hearing. His tone dripped with contempt. Pathetic. Michael leaned in, his whisper equally audible, equally cruel. I told you she has given up. She is nothing without me. She knows it. This is just formality at this point. Elena's hand paused for a microsecond over the signature line. Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the only external sign of the rage burning through her veins like acid. Then she signed, smooth, practiced, her signature that she had been practicing since she was 16, when she had read a book about successful women and learned that a confident signature was important. Elena Marie Vance. She had not been Elena Hartford long enough for that signature to feel natural. Now she would never have to use it again. Page after page after page. Never looking up, never making eye contact with Michael or his lawyer, or the paralegal who was watching like this was dinner theater. Never giving them the satisfaction of seeing her face, seeing whatever emotion might be visible there. She signed away spousal support, the money she was legally entitled to after 10 years of marriage, after giving up her own career prospects to support his. She signed the non-disclosure agreement, promising never to speak publicly about their marriage, about his infidelity, about the emotional abuse that had worn her down year after year until she barely recognized herself. She signed the non-compete clause buried in the fine print on page 37, the clause that said she could not start any business in the real estate or financial services sector for 12 months without Michael's written consent. She signed away her rights to all intellectual property, including but not limited to financial models, algorithms, business processes, and strategic documents created during the marriage. Every signature was smooth, practiced, emotionless, like signing permission slips for a field trip, like signing a credit card receipt. Mechanical, automatic, the erasure of 10 years reduced to muscle memory. She capped the pen when she was finished, slid the papers across the polished table, still looking down at the wood grain, at her own faint reflection, at anything except the people in this room. Done, she said quietly. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, flat and distant, like it belonged to someone else entirely. Michael stood immediately, his chair scraping against the floor with an ugly sound. He grabbed the folder of signed documents, already pulling out his phone. Great, well, Elena, I would say it has been fun, but he shrugged, adjusting his cufflinks, 18-karat gold with his initials engraved. Good luck with the rest of your life. Try not to starve. He walked toward the door, already on the phone, not even waiting until he was out of earshot. Babe, it is done. I'm a free man. Chill the champagne. I will be there by 9. Wear the blue dress I like. Rothstein gathered the remaining copies of the agreement, organizing them into a leather portfolio with his firm's gold-embossed logo. He gave Elena a look that might have been intended as sympathetic but came across as condescending. You can take the service elevator down, miss. He checked the papers, making a show of it. Vance, it exits to the side alley. Less foot traffic. Probably better for you, given the circumstances. Miss Vance, not Mrs. Hartford, not even Elena, already reduced to a name on a document, a problem solved, a loose end tied up, the efficient erasure of a person. Elena stood slowly. Her legs felt like lead, heavy and uncooperative, like they belonged to someone else. She walked toward the door, moving carefully, conscious of maintaining her composure for just a few more minutes, still looking down at the floor. One foot in front of the other, cream carpet with a subtle geometric pattern, polished marble in the hallway, the brass doors of the service elevator. The service elevator was empty, thank God. The doors closed with a quiet hiss that sounded like an exhale. The moment she was alone, the carefully constructed facade cracked. A single tear escaped, hot and angry against her cold skin, tracing a line down her cheek. She did not wipe it away. She was too tired to even lift her hand. Elena pulled out her phone, the screen cracked in one corner from when she had dropped it 3 weeks ago and could not afford to fix it. Opened her banking app, checked her account balance. $3,200. That was everything she had. The joint accounts had been frozen 3 months ago when Michael filed for divorce. The credit cards had been canceled. Her name removed from everything. An email notification appeared at the top of her screen from Rothstein and Associates. Subject line, Settlement Pawn Transfer Timeline. She opened it, read the single line of text. Settlement funds will clear in 6 to 8 weeks, subject to standard processing delays. 6 to 8 weeks. She had $3,200 and nowhere to live except the Connecticut cottage that would not officially be hers for 6 to 8 weeks. She had no job, no recent work history, a 12-month non-compete that made her virtually unemployable in the only industry where she had expertise. 10 years of her life signed away in 47 pages she had not even bothered to read. Because she already knew what they said. Because Rothstein's reputation was built on contracts that were airtight and merciless. Because Michael had more money for lawyers than Elena had for groceries. Or so they thought. The elevator dinged, ground floor. The doors opened onto a small lobby she had never seen before. Utilitarian and ugly, clearly designed for service staff and deliveries, not for the important people who use the main elevators. A security guard glanced up from his desk, looked at her tear-stained face, looked away quickly. People crying in this building were apparently common enough not to warrant attention. Elena pushed through the heavy metal door and stepped out into the side alley behind the building. The January wind hit her immediately, brutal and sharp, cutting through her thin coat. She had a warmer coat, a beautiful wool Burberry that Michael had bought her 3 Christmases ago, but she had left it at the penthouse, not wanting to take anything that felt like it belonged to him. It was 4:47 in the afternoon and already getting dark, the winter sun setting early, the buildings casting long shadows across the narrow alley. The sky was that particular shade of gray that only happens in New York City winters, when the clouds and the concrete seem to blend together into one colorless void. Elena pulled her thin coat tighter around her body, wrapping her arms around herself against the cold. No umbrella. She had not thought to check the weather this morning. She had barely managed to get dressed and out the door. She started walking toward the subway station 3 blocks away, the F train to Connecticut, back to her mother's house, where she would have to admit that her marriage had failed, that she had nothing, that at 32 years old she was starting completely over. Then she saw it, parked directly in front of the building, taking up a space marked "No Parking Tow Away Zone," was a black Bentley Mulsanne, engine purring quietly, expensive and powerful, exhaust visible in the cold air like dragon's breath. The car was immaculate, freshly washed despite the gray slush covering most of Manhattan, the black paint reflecting the streetlights. The rear window rolled down smoothly, revealing the interior. A man's face appeared, late 40s, silver-streaked dark hair cut perfectly, steel gray eyes that seemed to take in everything at once, sharp cheekbones, expensive cologne that carried on the wind even from 15 feet away, something woody and complex that probably cost more per ounce than Elena's entire outfit. James Carter. Elena, he said. Not a question, a statement. Her name in his voice. She froze mid-step, her brain struggling to process what she was seeing. She had not heard that voice in 7 years, had not seen this man since 2018, since she had graduated from Columbia and immediately married Michael and disappeared into the role of supportive wife. James, her voice came out uncertain, shaky. What are you? How are you? I have been waiting for you. His voice was calm, matter of fact, like this was a perfectly normal situation. Get in. Elena looked down at herself, at her damp coat, at the slush on her shoes. I am wet. I will ruin the leather. James's expression did not change. His face was hard to read, controlled, the face of someone who had spent decades in high-stakes negotiations. I can buy a new car. I cannot, however, buy you a new immune system if you catch pneumonia. Get in. The suicide door swung open automatically, smooth and silent, revealing cream leather seats and wood trim and the kind of interior that belonged in a luxury hotel, not a vehicle. Warm air spilled out, carrying that scent of expensive cologne and leather and money. Elena looked at the open car door, then at the subway entrance 3 blocks away, then back at James. This was insane. She had not spoken to this man in 7 years. What was he doing here? How did he know she would be at this building at this exact time? How long had he been waiting? But the wind cut through her thin coat like knives, and her teeth started to chatter, and her shoes were soaked through, and she was both so tired. Tired of being cold, tired of being alone, tired of fighting. She did not have energy left to question good fortune. She just needed to be warm. Elena stepped forward and slid into the cream leather seat. The door closed automatically behind her with a quiet, solid thud, sealing out the world, sealing out the cold, sealing out the gray winter afternoon. The quality of the silence was immediate and profound, the kind of soundproofing that costs more than most people's annual salary. Warm air enveloped her immediately, perfectly climate-controlled, not too hot, just exactly right. The scent of the car's interior filled her senses. Cedarwood and bergamot, fresh leather, something else underneath, maybe sandalwood. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers, boom, built seamlessly into the interior. Vivaldi, she thought. Winter from the Four Seasons. Appropriate. James tapped a button on the armrest, speaking into an intercom. Drive, Marcus. The St. Regis. His voice was clipped, efficient, a man used to giving orders and having them followed instantly. Without a word, he handed Elena a plush towel, thick and soft and monogrammed with initials she did not recognize. She took it, grateful, and buried her face in it, partly to dry off, partly to hide the fresh tears that were threatening to spill over now that she was finally somewhere safe. You look like hell, James said, not unkindly, just stating a fact. Elena let out a muffled laugh through the towel, the sound coming out choked and watery. You always knew how to charm a girl. I deal in facts, not charm. He leaned back in his seat, studying her with those calculating gray eyes that seemed to see through surfaces into deeper truths. You just signed divorce papers with Michael Hartford, did you not? Elena lowered the towel slowly, suddenly suspicious. The warm safety of the car suddenly felt less safe. How do you know that? I make it my business to know when valuable assets become available on the market. The words hit her like ice water. Elena flinched, her whole body tensing. Is that what I am? A distressed asset? No. His gaze softened, just slightly, just enough to seem human instead of calculating. You are a dormant volcano, and I think you are about to erupt. He reached for a hidden panel in the door, pressed something, and it slid open to reveal a mini refrigerator stocked with bottled water and champagne. He pulled out 2 bottles of sparkling water, San Pellegrino, in green glass bottles, and poured them into crystal glasses that were held in place by recessed holders designed exactly for that purpose. Handed one to Elena. His movements were precise, practiced, elegant. Elena took the glass with a trembling hand, but forced herself to hold it steady, refused to let him see how badly she was shaking. The water was perfectly chilled. She took a small sip, the bubbles sharp on her tongue. I saw the terms, Elena. James's voice was conversational, but there was an edge underneath, something sharp and interested. I have sources in Rothstein's office. Michael thinks he stripped you bare. He thinks he took the algorithm, the code, the proprietary systems, the future of Hartford properties, everything you built. Elena took another sip of water, buying time, her mind racing. How did James have sources in Rothstein's office? How long had he been watching this situation? What did he want? He thinks that, yes. And did he? James asked, watching her face carefully. Elena slowly lowered the glass, looked directly at him for the first time. The sadness in her eyes receded gradually, like fog burning off under sudden sunlight, replaced by something else, something cold and sharp and controlled, something that had been waiting for this exact moment. Michael is a brilliant showman, James. He can walk into a room and make people believe anything. He can sell sand in a desert. But he never bothered to learn the back-end architecture of his own valuation system. He never wanted to understand how things actually worked. He just wanted to be the face of the company, the genius who got written up in Forbes. Go on. James leaned forward slightly, interested. He signed papers today, thinking he got the Hartford Properties financial models, the deal evaluation templates, the investor algorithms. Everything. What he does not know is that 3 months ago when I found out about Amber, I restructured everything. She paused, watching James's face for a reaction. He showed nothing, just waited. I created version 2.0 of all the systems, completely rebuilt from the ground up. The files Michael has are version 1.0, still functional but capped at certain thresholds. Version 2 requires biometric authentication, my fingerprint plus retinal scan. Without it, the old system will run for exactly 30 days at full capacity, then lock completely. After that, he gets basic functions only. No projections, no algorithms, no investor analytics, nothing that actually makes the company valuable. James's expression did not change, but she saw the flash of appreciation in his eyes, a quick gleam of recognition, one chess player acknowledging another. In 29 days, Hartford Properties is going public. $3.2 billion initial public offering. Michael has been pitching major institutional investors for months using your old models. But on day 30, which is actually 29 days from today, Elena said, checking her watch, a simple Timex she had bought at Target, the system requires reauthentication. When it does not get my biometrics, everything locks down. He will still have access to basic property records, but none of the valuation analytics, none of the predictive modeling, none of the tools that make investors willing to pay premium prices. He will not be able to access the real models. He will not be able to prove his valuations to the Securities and Exchange Commission. The IPO will collapse. And he is flying to Turks and Caicos tonight for 2 weeks, a vacation with Amber. By the time he realizes what is happening, by the time he flies back and tries to fix it, it will be too late. The IPO roadshow is already scheduled. Investors are already committed. When the system fails, when he cannot provide the documentation they need, they will pull out. The whole thing will fall apart. James leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his face. Genuine, delighted. You did not sign those papers without looking up because you were defeated. You signed without looking up so he would not see you smiling. Elena allowed herself a small smile, the first real one in months. It felt strange on her face, like using muscles she had forgotten she had. I need a job, James. I have the leverage, I have the plan, but I have no platform. I have $3,200 to my name. When Michael figures this out, he will sue me into oblivion. His mother, Victoria, will come after me with everything she has. I need resources. I need protection. I need a way to turn this leverage into something sustainable. James picked up his tablet from the seat beside him, one of those expensive custom models made specifically for executives, tapped a few buttons with practiced ease. Check your phone. Elena pulled out her phone, her cracked screen phone that was 3 models old, and watched as a notification appeared. Deposit received, $2,500,000. Sender, Carter Equity Group. She gasped, actually gasped, the sound escaping before she could control it. Dropped the phone onto the leather seat beside her. James, what is this? Signing bonus? I am not hiring you as an employee, Elena. I am acquiring you as a partner. Elena stared at him, trying to process what was happening. $2.5 million, just transferred. Just like that. Why are you doing this? You gave me $2.5 million, and you have not seen me in 7 years. This is personal. This is not just business. Tell me why. James looked out the window as the car glided smoothly through Manhattan traffic, the city flowing past in a blur of lights and movement. His jaw was tight. When he finally spoke, his voice was controlled, but there was an edge underneath. Old anger. 6 years ago, I tried to acquire Hartford Properties. Michael and I were negotiating a $500 million deal. I was going to merge his Manhattan portfolio with my commercial holdings, create the largest privately held real estate company in the Northeast. At the last minute, he pulled out, said he got a better offer, said Singapore investors were willing to pay more. I remember that, Elena said quietly. The Singapore investors. He talked about it for months. James turned to look at her, his gray eyes hard as steel. There were no Singapore investors. He used my offer to leverage better terms from Deutsche Bank. He played me, made me waste 6 months of work, cost me $4 million in due diligence fees, made me look foolish in front of my own board. So this is revenge? This is business. Michael Hartford is about to learn that the person he underestimated most, his own wife, was the only thing keeping his empire standing. And I am going to help you prove it. He extended his hand across the space between them, formal, businesslike. Tonight you stay at the St. Regis, best suite they have. Get warm, get rest, order room service. Tomorrow morning at 9, we walk into Carter Equity and we start building the platform that will make Hartford Properties obsolete. We launch Meridian. We change the industry. We make Michael irrelevant. Deal? Elena looked at his extended hand, at this man she had not spoken to in 7 years, at this offer that seemed too good to be true, at this revenge fantasy that aligned perfectly with her own. One condition, she said, name it. When he crashes, when he realizes what is happening and comes crawling back begging for help, I want to be the one to answer the phone. I want to be the one to say no. James smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Deal. They shook hands. The car pulled up to the St. Regis, the doorman already moving toward them, the hotel glowing warm and golden against the dark January night. Elena stepped out of the car into the cold evening air, but for the first time in months, she did not feel cold at all. She felt like fire, like a dormant volcano about to erupt. She felt like herself again. The Astor Suite at the St. Regis, New York, was larger than the cottage in Connecticut that Elena was supposedly inheriting as part of her divorce settlement. The entrance hallway alone, with its imported marble floors and original 19th century artwork, could have fit her entire childhood bedroom. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Fifth Avenue, offering a view of the city that looked like something from a movie, all glittering lights and impossible architecture. The bedroom featured a California king bed with Egyptian cotton sheets that probably had a thread count higher than Elena's credit score. The bathroom had heated marble floors, a soaking tub that could fit 3 people, and Hermes toiletries arranged like art installations. Elena did not sleep. She tried. She took a hot bath, the first real bath she had allowed herself in months, soaking in water infused with lavender oil until her skin pruned. She put on the complimentary robe, plush and white and thick as a blanket. She climbed into the enormous bed and pulled the covers up to her chin and closed her eyes. But every time she started to drift off, her mind would spin back up. $3,200, $2,500,000, 29 days, Michael on a plane to Turks and Caicos, the authentication system, James's face, Victoria Hartford, the ticking clock. At 3 in the morning, she gave up on sleep entirely, got out of bed, wrapped herself in the robe, sat in the velvet armchair by the window, watching the city that never sleeps, processing everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. At some point, she opened her laptop, the laptop that Michael thought was just for checking email and online shopping, not knowing it was the same laptop where she had built his entire company. Logged into the Hartford property system remotely, using credentials she had created months ago that only she knew existed. Watch the countdown timer running in the background of the code. 28 days, 20 hours, 14 minutes, 37 seconds. Michael had no idea. He was probably sitting in first class right now, drinking expensive champagne, telling Amber about how he had finally gotten rid of his deadweight wife, how he was free, how his future was unlimited. Elena smiled at her laptop screen. Let him enjoy his vacation. Let him think he won. The best part of revenge was watching someone celebrate right before you pulled the rug out from under them. At 7 in the morning, there was a soft knock at the door. Elena checked the peephole, saw a woman in her 50s holding several garment bags and a leather portfolio. Opened the door cautiously. "Good morning, Miss Vance." The woman's voice was professional but warm, with a slight British accent. "My name is Beatrice Morrison. I am a personal shopper. Mr. Carter suggested you might need attire appropriate for a board meeting. He mentioned your previous style was, and I quote, muted by necessity." Elena blinked, still processing. "He said that?" Beatrice smiled, kind and knowing. "He said you were hiding. He wants you to stop." She held up the garment bags. "May I come in?" For the next hour, Elena tried on power suits that cost more than her monthly rent used to be. A charcoal theory suit that fit like it had been made specifically for her body, sharp and precise as a blade. An Alexander McQueen black dress with architectural shoulders that made her look like she could walk into a boardroom and make grown men nervous. A navy Armani blazer with matching trousers that somehow managed to be both elegant and intimidating. Louboutin heels in classic black, red soles flashing like warning signals with each step. Weapons disguised as shoes. Beatrice moved around her with practiced efficiency, pinning here, marking there, taking notes on a tablet. "Mr. Carter said to tell you that these are not gifts, they are investments. You will be representing Carter Equity in meetings with institutional investors. You need to look like someone who belongs in those rooms." "I have never belonged in those rooms," Elena said quietly, looking at herself in the mirror in the McQueen dress. "That is what people who do not belong in those rooms say," Beatrice replied. "People who actually do not belong walk in like they own the place. You have spent years making yourself small. Mr. Carter thinks it is time to stop." When Elena looked in the full-length mirror, wearing the theory suit with a cream silk blouse, hair swept back, the tired woman from yesterday was gone. This woman looked like she could negotiate million-dollar deals. This woman looked like she could destroy empires. But then, without warning, nausea hit. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. She ran to the bathroom, barely making it to the toilet before she vomited. Everything came up. The crackers she had eaten at 2 in the morning, the water, the bile. Beatrice appeared in the bathroom doorway, concerned but professional. "Are you all right, Miss Vance? Should I call a doctor?" "No," Elena managed, flushing, moving to the sink. "I am fine, just stress. I will be fine." But she was not fine, and it was not stress. After Beatrice left with promises to have everything tailored and delivered by that afternoon, Elena sat on the bathroom floor, her back against the marble wall, and let herself acknowledge what she had been avoiding for 6 weeks. She was pregnant. She had known, really, for a while. She had taken 3 tests, all positive. She had missed 2 periods. She had been nauseous most mornings. She had made an appointment with her gynecologist, who had confirmed it. 12 weeks along, due in early July. Conceived in late August, before she knew about Amber, back when she still thought her marriage might survive. Back when she and Michael had tried to reconnect during a long weekend in the Hamptons that had been more sad than romantic, but had at least been an attempt. She had not told Michael, had not told anyone, because the moment she found out, the moment she saw those two pink lines on the test, she had known she had to leave. She could not raise a child with Michael, could not let Victoria Hartford get her claws into another generation, could not let her daughter or son grow up thinking love meant making yourself small. So she had planned and plotted and waited for the right moment and signed the papers without mentioning the pregnancy because she knew Michael would use it as leverage, would drag her into years of custody battles, would make her life hell. Better to let him think he was free. Let him go to Turks and Caicos. Let him celebrate his victory. Let his company collapse. Then when he was weak and scrambling, she would tell him when she had the power. Elena opened her purse, pulled out a prenatal vitamin bottle that she kept hidden inside an old aspirin bottle, took one with water from the sink, whispered to her reflection in the mirror, "Not yet. I cannot tell anyone yet. Not James, not Michael, not Mom. Not yet." At 9 in the morning, Marcus picked her up in the Bentley. She wore the theory suit with the cream silk blouse, hair swept back into a low bun, minimal makeup except for red lipstick, the same shade her mother wore to job interviews, the shade that meant business, professional, powerful. The drive to Hudson Yards took 20 minutes through morning traffic. Carter Equity Group occupied the entire 58th floor of one of the new glass towers, all clean lines and modern architecture. The elevator opened directly into the reception area, where a young man at the desk stood immediately when he saw her. "Miss Vance, Mr. Carter's expecting you. This way, please." The office was glass walls and open floor plan, everyone working with focused intensity. No cubicles, no closed offices except for a few conference rooms, just desks and computers and people who looked like they were changing the world. James met her at the elevator, wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than Elena's first car. "Welcome to Carter Equity, partner." He led her through the open floor, past desks where people looked up and stared, curious, assessing, past conference rooms where meetings were happening, deals being made, futures being decided, to a corner office next to his own, triple monitors on a custom desk, state-of-the-art computer setup with processing power Elena had only dreamed about, windows overlooking Hudson Yards and the Hudson River beyond, and on the desk a single white orchid in a simple ceramic pot. "This is too much," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is what you deserve. This is what you should have had all along." James's voice was matter-of-fact, but there was something underneath, something that sounded almost like anger on her behalf. "Get to work. I will bring you up to speed on current projects at 11. Lunch at 1 with the development team. Dinner at 7 with our CFO to discuss Meridian financials. For now, familiarize yourself with our systems." "James, yes? Thank you." He paused in the doorway, looked back at her. "Thank me when we have changed the industry. For now, just prove me right." He left. Elena stood in her new office, looking out at the view, trying to process the fact that 12 hours ago she had been signing away her life, and now she was here, in a corner office at one of Manhattan's most successful private equity firms, with $2.5 million in her bank account and a plan to destroy her ex-husband's empire. It felt surreal. It felt dangerous. It felt like the beginning of something that could either save her or destroy her. For the next 2 weeks, Elena worked 16-hour days. She rebuilt her systems on Carter's servers, creating what they were calling Meridian, a next-generation real estate valuation platform using artificial intelligence and real-time market analytics. Everything she had built for Michael, but better, smarter, more transparent. James brought her food, made sure she ate. Sometimes they worked in silence side by side, just the sound of typing and the hum of computers. Sometimes they debated valuation methodologies until midnight, arguing about cap rates and market assumptions, challenging each other's thinking. The chemistry was there, unspoken, acknowledged through glances and careful distances, both too professional to act on it, both too focused on the work, both carrying too much baggage to add romance to an already complicated situation. But Elena started noticing things, strange things. James had files on Hartford properties dating back 8 years, not 6. Detailed files. Internal memos she had never seen. Employee records from before she even started working on the company. Financial statements that should not be accessible to outside parties. She found them by accident one night when she was looking for demographic data on Manhattan real estate buyers. Opened the wrong shared drive. Saw the folder labeled Hartford Comprehensive Background. She did not ask him about it, not yet. But she started wondering, what was James's real agenda? Was this really about a failed acquisition 6 years ago? Or was there something deeper? On day 12 after signing the divorce papers, Elena was in her office reviewing code when her phone buzzes. Unknown number. She almost did not answer, thinking it was spam, but something made her look. A photo. Her mother's house in Connecticut. Red laser dot on the front door, clear as blood against the white paint. Then a text message. You took something that does not belong to you. Drop the project or consequences follow. Elena's hands started shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. She walked quickly to James's office, not caring that he was on a video call with investors in Tokyo. He saw her face and immediately said, "Gentlemen, I apologize. Emergency, we will reschedule," and killed the call. What happened? She showed him the photo. James's jaw tightened, his face going from concern to coldly furious in less than a second. He picked up his phone. "Marcus, get a security team to this address now." He rattled off Elena's mother's address from memory, which was strange because Elena was certain she had never told him that address. Armed, 24-hour coverage, 4-person rotation. Nobody gets within 100 yards of that property without clearance. Do it now. He hung up, pulled up a file on his computer. Photo of an elegant older woman in a Chanel suit. Silver hair and a perfect cut that probably cost $500 to maintain. Cold blue eyes, thin lips, the kind of face that looked like it had never smiled genuinely in its entire life. Victoria Hartford, Michael's mother. She controls the family trust. $800 million. If Michael's IPO fails, if Hartford Properties collapses, the trust loses its primary asset. Everything Victoria has built her life around disappears. She is not going to let that happen. She is threatening my mother? Victoria does not bluff. I have been tracking her for years. She destroyed Thomas Brennan's first wife, Lisa, drove her out of New York entirely. She intimidated Catherine Morrison into dropping a harassment lawsuit against Michael's brother. She had Jennifer Walsh's professional license suspended through fake ethics complaints. This is what she does. This is who she is. James looked at Elena seriously, and for the first time since she had gotten into his car, she saw something like genuine concern in his eyes. This just became war with the entire Hartford dynasty. This is not just about Michael anymore. This is about a family that has spent 4 generations building power and wealth and will destroy anyone who threatens that. Are you sure you want to continue? Elena thought about Michael's smirk in the conference room. Rothstein's whisper. Pathetic. Victoria's red laser dot on her mother's door. The years of making herself small. The baby growing inside her that would never know its grandmother if Victoria had her way. I am sure. But inside, fear crept in like ice water filling her veins. Because this was no longer about revenge. This was about survival. On day 14, Elena stood in her new apartment, a modest but comfortable 1-bedroom in Brooklyn that she had rented with part of her signing bonus. It was not the penthouse. It was not even the cottage in Connecticut. But it was hers. The lease was in her name. The security deposit came from her account. Nobody could take it away. A hair and makeup team worked on her, professionals that James had hired, transforming her into someone who belonged at the Metropolitan Investors Gala, the annual event where Manhattan's financial elite gathered to network and deal-make and show off their wealth like peacocks displaying plumage. She wore a midnight blue velvet gown that Beatrice had selected, elegant and understated, but unmistakably expensive. A diamond necklace on loan from the Carter family vault, insured for more money than Elena would earn in 5 years. Hair swept up into an intricate updo that had taken 45 minutes to create. Red lips, smoky eyes. She looked like she belonged in Vogue, but she felt sick. Morning sickness that had started extending into afternoon and evening sickness. Stress combining with hormones. Fear mixing with determination. Her phone rang, mom calling. Grace Vance, the woman who had raised Elena alone after her father died when she was 6. The woman who had worked 2 jobs to put Elena through private high school. The woman who deserved so much better than a daughter who had brought armed guards to her doorstep. Hi, Mom. Honey, there are men with guns outside my house. Ways. Grace's voice was calm but concerned. She had always been steady in crisis. Years of nursing training making her unflappable in emergencies. I know, I sent them. It's just a precaution. Elena, what is going on? This has something to do with Michael, doesn't it? And don't tell me it's nothing. I've had 4 different men in tactical gear introduce themselves and explain patrol patterns. This is not nothing. Elena sat down on the bed, careful not to wrinkle her dress. Mom, I can't explain everything right now, but I need you to trust me. Stay inside as much as possible. Don't open the door for anyone except the security team. Don't talk to reporters if any show up. Don't accept any packages or deliveries. Just please stay safe. Long pause, then Grace's voice softer. Are you in danger? No, maybe, I don't know, but I am handling it. Sweetheart, you don't have to handle everything alone. You never did. That was always your problem, even as a little girl. You thought asking for help meant you were weak. I am asking for help. That is why the security team is there. I don't mean security teams. I mean me. I mean actual emotional support. Are you okay? Elena felt tears threatening and forced them back. She could not cry now, not with 45-minute makeup. I will be okay, I promise. But I need to go. I have an event. Elena? Yes? Whatever you are doing, look up. Don't let them make you small. You are worth so much more than Michael ever deserved. Elena's throat tightened. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. After hanging up, Elena looked at herself in the mirror one more time. She looked powerful, confident, like a woman who could take on the world. But she was terrified. There was a knock at the door, or James in a tuxedo that made him look like he had walked off a movie set. Ready to change your life? Elena took a deep breath, forced her shoulders back, lifted her chin. I was born ready. They left for the gala in the Bentley, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Temple of Dendor. Manhattan's elite would be there. Tech moguls, real estate tycoons, hedge fund managers, old money aristocrats whose families had been wealthy since the Gilded Age. Red carpet stretched from the street to the museum entrance. Paparazzi lined both sides, cameras flashing like lightning, reporters shouting questions at everyone who walked past. Mr. Carter, is it true Hartford Properties IPO is in trouble? Who is your date, Mr. Carter? Is Carter Equity making a major acquisition? The black Bentley pulled up. Marcus opened the door. James stepped out first, then extended his hand. Elena emerged. The collective gasp was audible even over the shouts of photographers. The woman who had been invisible at Michael's side for 7 years. The wife nobody remembered. The +1 who never spoke was now a supernova. The cameras went insane, flashing so fast it looked like strobing. A reporter shoved a microphone toward her. Miss Vance, do you have comment on the Hartford Properties situation? Is it true you are working with Carter Equity? Elena paused just for a moment, looking directly into the camera. Calm, composed, with a hint of something dangerous underneath. Gravity is a law of nature. What goes up without foundation must come down. She smiled, took James's arm, and walked up the red carpet like she owned it. Inside the ballroom, the Temple of Dendor was transformed into something magical. Dramatic lighting made the ancient Egyptian temple glow golden against the glass wall. Round tables draped in white linen surrounded the reflecting pool. Crystal glasses caught the light. String quartet playing classical music. Wealth on display, so casually it became invisible. Elena and James were seated at the center table, the prime spot reserved for the biggest donors. Carter Equity had sponsored at the highest tier. Everyone who mattered would see them, would wonder, would talk. They sipped champagne, made small talk with other guests, played the game. Elena had forgotten how to do this, how to navigate these social waters, but it came back quickly. Smile, Nod. Ask thoughtful questions. Make them think you care about their yacht or their Hamptons house or their child at Harvard. Then at 8:47, the doors burst open. Michael Hartford stormed in. Fresh off a red-eye from Turks and Caicos, his tuxedo was wrinkled, tie slightly crooked, hair uncombed, sweating despite the museum's perfect climate control. He looked like a man who had gotten very bad news very suddenly and had immediately gotten on a plane. He scanned the room frantically, eyes wild, saw Elena in midnight blue velvet, saw her sitting at the center table like she belonged there, saw James beside her. He stormed across the ballroom floor. 300 people turned to watch. Conversations died. Forks stopped mid-bite. Everyone suddenly very interested in this drama. "Elena!" Michael's voice echoed off the stone walls, loud and desperate. The room went completely silent. Phone cameras came out. This was social media gold, the kind of scene people would be posting about for weeks. Elena remained seated, took a slow sip of champagne, did not turn her head until Michael was standing right at her table, breathing hard, looking like he might have a heart attack. "You think this is funny?" His voice trembled with rage. "You locked the system. You stole my company. You sabotaged everything." Elena slowly, deliberately, set her champagne glass down, turned to face him. Her expression was calm, almost bored. "Good evening, Michael. You look tired. Was the flight rough? Give me the authentication key right now, or I will have you arrested for corporate sabotage, for theft, for fraud, for everything I can think of." Elena stood, meeting his eyes, and for the first time in 10 years, she was taller than him in her heels, and he had to look up slightly. "Sabotage? I did not sabotage anything. I simply secured my intellectual property. You signed the divorce agreement. You took the company assets. But the biometric protocols, those are linked to the creator of the code. And since you made very clear in front of multiple witnesses that I contributed nothing to Hartford Properties, that I never worked a day in my life." She paused, let that sink in. "How is it possible that I have the power to shut you down? Unless, of course, you lied, unless I built everything and you just took credit." Michael opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came. He was trapped in his own lie, in front of 300 witnesses, in front of cameras, in front of everyone who mattered in Manhattan real estate. Then James took the stage. The spotlight swung to illuminate him at the podium near the Temple of Dender. The screen behind him lit up with the Meridian logo, clean and modern and professional. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. I am pleased to announce the launch of Meridian, the next generation of real estate valuation technology." The room erupted in whispers, investors leaning toward each other, speculating, calculating. Built by the brilliant mind of Elena Vance. James gestured toward her, and the spotlight found Elena, standing beside Michael, looking powerful and calm while he looked desperate and disheveled. The contrast could not have been more stark. Meridian uses artificial intelligence-driven market analytics to provide accurate, transparent property assessments. No more black box algorithms. No more opaque methodologies. No more trusting valuations that cannot be verified. The implication was clear. Hartford Properties was the black box. Hartford Properties was the opaque methodology. Hartford Properties was what Meridian would replace. James continued, "While some companies rely on inflated projections and proprietary systems that cannot be audited." He looked directly at Michael. Everyone else looked at Michael too. 300 pairs of eyes. Meridian brings accountability to the industry, real-time data, transparent calculations, blockchain verification, available to institutional investors starting next week. The room erupted, investors swarming toward James, business cards being exchanged. Elena's phone was already filling with meeting requests, with messages from venture capital firms, with media inquiries. Security quietly escorted Michael out as he protested, but nobody was listening anymore. He had been made irrelevant in less than 5 minutes. The new thing was here. The old thing was being removed. As Elena and James left the gala 2 hours later, after schmoozing investors and taking photographs and answering questions, Elena felt triumphant. They had done it. She had reclaimed her work, her voice, her power. She was no longer invisible. "We did it," she said to James in the car. He kissed her forehead gently. Not romantic, friendly, supportive. "You did it. I just provided the platform." Elena's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost did not answer, still riding the high of victory. But something made her look. A New York area code. She answered. "Hello?" Victoria Hartford's voice came through the speaker. Ice cold, aristocratic, every syllable enunciated with perfect diction. "Did you enjoy your little performance, dear? I hope so, because tomorrow morning you will be served with a $50 million lawsuit for breach of non-disclosure agreement, theft of trade secrets, and corporate espionage. We have already filed with the court. Process servers will find you by noon." Elena's blood froze. "You cannot." "I can. And here is the beautiful part. Your mother's house, we are foreclosing. She apparently took out a second mortgage last month. $300,000. Strange because she does not remember signing the papers. But the signature is hers, notarized and everything. My people are very good with paperwork. She has 30 days to pay in full or she loses the house. And at her age, with her medical history, I wonder how that kind of stress will affect her heart. That is fraud. She never signed those papers. We will prove it. The documents are filed with the county clerk, notarized by a licensed notary, witnessed by 2 people who will testify they saw her sign. Everything perfectly legal. See you in court, dear. Oh, and congratulations on the pregnancy. 3 months along, according to your medical records. Must be so stressful, all this legal trouble while carrying a baby. I do hope nothing goes wrong." The call ended. Elena could not breathe. The car felt too small, too hot, the air too thick. James was saying something, but she could not hear him over the roaring in her ears. Victoria knew about the pregnancy. How? HIPAA violations, probably. But Victoria had enough money to make people violate any law. She was threatening Grace. She was going to take the house. She was suing for $50 million that Elena did not have. Elena's hands shook as she pulled up the text that followed the call. Attached documents. Grace's forged signature on loan papers. Perfectly executed, perfectly illegal, but impossible to prove. James took the phone from her shaking hands, read the documents, his face going hard. "This is Thomas Brennan's work, Victoria's fixer. He specializes in document forgery. I have seen his work before. He is very good, very careful. Everything will check out. Signature analysis will match. The notary will have records. The witnesses will have alibis for why they were there. He builds an entire false history." "My mom," Elena whispered. "She will lose her house. She cannot afford $300,000. She has maybe $10,000 in savings. And the lawsuit, James, $50 million. The way I obtained those files during the marriage, Victoria's lawyers will argue I violated the NDA. They will say I stole intellectual property. I could go to prison." First despair point. All her triumph from the gala evaporated like water on hot pavement. She thought she had won. She was wrong. She had just made Victoria angry. And angry billionaires were the most dangerous people on earth. Elena collapsed back against the car seat, struggling to breathe. James was on his phone calling lawyers, calling security, calling people who could help. But Elena barely heard him. All she could think was, I am going to lose everything. My mom will lose her house. I am going to go to prison. I am pregnant and alone, and I just made the most powerful family in New York my enemy. What have I done? The next morning, Elena was in her Brooklyn apartment, sitting on the bathroom floor, vomiting again. The stress was making the morning sickness worse. Or maybe the morning sickness was just getting worse naturally at 13 weeks. Or maybe it was both. She had stopped being able to tell what was pregnancy and what was trauma. She heard footsteps in the hallway, James's voice. Elena, are you okay? She had not remembered giving him a key, but apparently she had. Or maybe he had just let himself in. Or maybe Marcus had driven him, and opened the door because Elena had texted him at 3 in the morning in a panic, and he had said he was coming over. "I am fine," she called through the bathroom door, her voice hoarse. "Just stress. This is the fourth morning I have heard you throwing up." His voice was gentle but insistent. "Elena, are you pregnant?" Long silence. Elena flushed the toilet, stood up on shaky legs, caught her reflection in the mirror. Pale, dark circles under her eyes. She looked like she had aged 5 years in 2 weeks. She opened the bathroom door. James stood there in jeans and a sweater, casual clothes she had never seen him wear before, looking concerned and human, and not at all like the calculating businessman she thought she knew. "Yes," she whispered. "I am pregnant." "How far along?" 13 weeks, almost 14. "I found out right before I signed the divorce papers. I did not tell Michael. I could not. He would have used it as leverage. Victoria would have tried to take custody. I could not." James looked at her, really looked at her, seeing her clearly maybe for the first time. "And you have been working 16-hour days fighting legal battles, dealing with death, threats, while pregnant? Elena, do you understand how dangerous that is?" "I do not have a choice." The words came out louder than she intended, almost a shout. "If I stop, Victoria wins, Michael wins, and my child grows up knowing their mother was too weak to fight back. I will not let that happen. You are not weak, but you cannot do this alone anymore. You need help, real help." Elena slid down the wall until she was sitting on the bathroom floor again, pulling her knees to her chest. "I'm alone, James. My mom might lose her house because of me. Victoria is going to destroy me in court. I am going to have a baby in 6 months that I can barely afford to feed, even with your $2.5 million, because lawyers are going to take all of it. I am alone and I am scared and I do not know what to do." James sat down on the floor beside her, not touching, just present. "You are not alone. I am here." But Elena pulled away, something clicking in her mind, all the strange pieces she had been noticing finally coming together. Why are you really here, James? We have not spoken in 7 years. Then suddenly you are waiting outside the lawyer's office the exact day I signed my divorce papers? You give me $2.5 million? You have files on Michael dating back 8 years, not 6. You know my mother's address without me ever telling you. What am I to you? A partner or a pawn? Tell me the truth." James's face went still. Caught. He stood up, walked out of the bathroom, and for a moment Elena thought he was leaving. But then she heard him in the kitchen, heard water running, heard cabinets opening. He came back with a glass of water and crackers on a plate, sat back down on the bathroom floor, handed them to her. "Eat something, then I will tell you the truth." Elena took a small sip of water, nibbled a cracker, waited. James stared at the wall across from them, not meeting her eyes. "You want the truth?" "Yes." "Fine. I did not just try to buy Hartford properties 6 years ago. I have been tracking Michael for 8 years, since 2017. Because in 2017, Michael stole a $200 million development deal from me in Chicago. He used insider information he got from my own office, from a junior analyst who worked for me." "What?" "Before Amber, before you knew about any affairs, there was someone else. Her name was Kelly Morrison. She was 26, brilliant analyst, MIT graduate. She worked for me. Michael met her at an industry conference, seduced her, made her think he loved her, got her to leak confidential bid information about a major development project we were pursuing. Then he undercut my offer by exactly $500,000, just enough to win, just enough to make me look like I had lost." James's voice was controlled, but there was old rage underneath, barely contained. "I lost the deal. Kelly lost her job. I could not keep her after what she did, even though I understood she had been manipulated. She could not find work anywhere in the industry after that. Michael had used her and discarded her. Her reputation was destroyed. She started drinking, got depressed. 6 months later, she took a bottle of sleeping pills and never woke up." Lena gasped, her hand going to her mouth. "So yes, I have been waiting for Michael to make a mistake, waiting for the perfect moment to destroy him. And then I saw the divorce filing. Public record. I saw your name. I remembered you from Columbia. Brilliant. Top of the class. Wasted on that narcissistic sociopath. And I realized the perfect weapon against Michael Hartford was his own wife, the woman he had underestimated and abused for a decade. You used me. The words felt like ash in Elena's mouth. I gave you $2.5 million and a platform to rebuild your life. You used me as bait. This was never about helping me. This was about your revenge, your guilt over Kelly. You wanted to destroy Michael, and you saw me as a tool. And you used me for protection and funding. James's voice rose slightly, frustration breaking through his control. You needed resources, and you knew I hated Michael. We used each other, Elena. That is how business works. That is how survival works. This is not business. This is my life, my mother's home, my baby. Elena struggled to stand, her vision swimming slightly. You let me walk into war with Victoria Hartford. You knew what she was capable of. You had files going back years. You knew exactly how dangerous this would become, and you let me do it anyway because it served your agenda. Long pause, the air between them thick with tension. James's voice softened. You are right, I am sorry. It started as revenge. It started as using you to get to Michael. But Elena, somewhere in the last 2 weeks, it stopped being about Michael and started being about you. I care about you. I care what happens to you and your baby. This is not just strategy anymore. I do not believe you. Then do not. But I am not walking away. Victoria's lawsuit, the foreclosure, all of it, I will help you fight. Not because you are a weapon, because you deserve better than what they did to you, because you are brilliant and strong and you should not have to face this alone. I need space. Elena's voice was quiet but firm. I need you to leave. I need to think. Elena, please, just go. James stood slowly. Looked like he wanted to say something else. Stopped himself, walked to the door, paused. I will have Marcus check on you later. Make sure you have food. Make sure you are safe. Whether you want to see me or not, you are going to have protection. He left. The door closed quietly behind him. Elena sat alone on her bathroom floor, pregnant, facing a $50 million lawsuit, mother about to lose her home. The man she was starting to trust had just admitted to manipulating her. The empire she was trying to build was probably going to crumble before it even launched. Second despair point, lower than before. Because this time she could not even blame it on being naive. She had walked into this with eyes open and still ended up drowning. Her phone buzzed, a text from a Connecticut number she did not recognize. She opened it. Photo of Grace in her garden, taken from a distance, clearly without her knowledge. Red circle drawn around her head in the image. Text below, tick-tock. Elena threw up again. This time there was nothing left in her stomach, just bile and fear. 2 days later, Elena was at a lawyer's office in Midtown, trying to figure out how to fight Victoria's lawsuit, when her phone rang. Unknown number. Connecticut area code. Hello? Is this Elena Vance? Yes. Your mother, Grace Vance, has been transported to Greenwich Hospital. She suffered a major cardiac event. You need to come right away. Is she alive? Ma'am, just get here as soon as you can. The train ride to Connecticut was the longest 90 minutes of Elena's life. She called James from the train. He did not answer. She called again. Voicemail. She left a message, her voice breaking. My mom had a heart attack. I am going to Greenwich Hospital. I do not know. I thought you should know. Greenwich Hospital Intensive Care Unit. Sterile white walls, beeping machines, smell of antiseptic. Grace hooked up to monitors and IVs, her face gray, her breathing shallow. She looked small and fragile in the hospital bed. Nothing like the strong woman who had raised Elena alone, who had worked double shifts to pay for her education, who had always been unbreakable. Elena pulled a chair to her bedside, took her mother's hand, cold and papery. Mom, I am here. I am so sorry. This is all my fault. A doctor came in, young, efficient, checking charts. Miss Vance? Yes? Your mother had a significant myocardial infarction, a heart attack. It was likely brought on by acute stress. Her cardiologist mentioned she has been under unusual pressure recently. Did something happen? Elena could not speak, could not form words. This was her fault. Her war with the Hartfords had almost killed her mother. Grace's eyes fluttered open, just barely. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. Elena, baby. I am here, Mom. I am so sorry. God, I am so sorry. This is all my fault. I should have just taken the settlement. I should have just disappeared. I should never have fought back. No, Grace squeezed her hand weakly. You, look up. Don't let them win. Mom, you almost died because of me, because I was stupid and proud and wanted revenge. You wanted to live. Don't apologize for living. The machines started beeping faster. Alarm sounds. The doctor rushed back in. You need to step out. Now. Elena was pushed into the hallway. Nurses rushed past her into the room. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, wrapped her arms around her knees, and sobbed. This is what happens when you fight back. People you love get hurt. People you love almost die. This is the price of not staying small. Third despair point, the lowest point, because this was not about money or pride or revenge anymore. This was about her mother's life. And Elena would give anything, everything, to turn back time and just sign those papers and disappear and never challenge the Hartfords at all. A man in an expensive suit approached her in the waiting room 3 hours later. Grace was stable now, sleeping, but stable. Elena had not moved from the plastic chair, had not eaten, had not called anyone. Elena Vance? Yes? You have been served. He handed her a manila envelope, walked away before she could respond. Elena opened the envelope with shaking hands. Read the papers. Emergency custody petition filed by Michael Hartford. Claims Elena Vance is mentally unstable, engaging in corporate espionage, and causing trauma to extended family members. Elena Vance is financially unstable, living off borrowed money with no sustainable income. Elena Vance is physically unfit, working excessive hours while pregnant, causing stress-related health emergency in her own mother. Medical records attached. Proof of pregnancy. Obtained through HIPAA violation, but Michael had expensive lawyers who would make it look legal. Request, temporary restraining order, preventing Elena from any contact with the Hartford family. Upon birth, baby to be placed in father's custody pending full evaluation. Mother may have supervised visitation once per week. Michael was going to take her baby. Elena's hands shook so badly, the papers scattered across the waiting room floor. A nurse looked over, concerned, but Elena waved her away. Michael was going to take her baby. Victoria was going to raise her child. Her son or daughter would grow up to be like them. Cold, cruel, entitled. Unless Elena gave up. Unless she surrendered. Unless she stopped fighting and let them win. She pulled out her phone, hands still shaking, called the only person who might be able to help, despite everything, despite the manipulation, despite the lies. James, I need help. He arrived at the hospital in less than an hour. Walked into the waiting room, still in the same clothes from 2 days ago, looking like he had not slept. He sat beside her without saying anything. Just present. Elena showed him the custody petition. He read it, his jaw tightening with each page. This is vicious, but Elena, it is also beatable. Michael has no case for actual custody. He abandoned you while you were pregnant. He committed adultery. He defrauded his own company. No family court judge will give him custody based on this. But fighting will take months, maybe years. The stress, James, the stress almost killed my mother. The stress could hurt the baby. My blood pressure is already high. The doctor told me today I am at risk for preeclampsia. If I keep fighting, if I keep living like this, I could miscarry. I could have a stroke. I could die. So what are you saying? Elena looked at him, her eyes red from crying, her face exhausted. I am saying maybe Victoria wins. Maybe I drop everything, apologize, beg. Give Michael the authentication key. Let the IPO happen. Let them have their money. Let them have their power. And in exchange, they leave me alone. They drop the lawsuit. They drop the foreclosure. They let me disappear. I will move somewhere far away. Colorado, maybe. Change my name. Raise my baby in peace. Just let this be over. Elena, no. My mother almost died, James, because of me. Because I wanted revenge more than I wanted to protect her. What kind of person does that make me? What kind of mother am I going to be if I cannot even keep my own mother safe? James was quiet for a long time. If that is what you want, I will support you. I will make the calls. Set up the meeting with Victoria. Negotiate the best terms I can. But Elena, once you give them that authentication key, you have nothing left to bargain with. They will take everything and give you nothing. Victoria does not keep her word. She will promise you peace and then destroy you anyway just because she can. Then I will have nothing, but my baby will have a mother, and my mother will have a daughter, and maybe that is enough. Maybe surviving is enough. Maybe I do not need to win. I just need to not lose everything. She stood up, exhausted, ready to leave, ready to surrender, ready for this nightmare to be over. James stood too. Wait, before you decide, there is someone you need to meet. Someone who knows Victoria better than anyone. Someone who fought her once and lost. She might have information that could help. Who? Lisa Brennan, Victoria's first victim. At 3 in the morning, they sat in a 24-hour diner in Stamford, Connecticut. Elena, James, and a woman named Lisa Brennan, who looked to be in her late 40s, with graying hair and tired eyes and the posture of someone who had been broken once and put herself back together, but the cracks still showed. You must be Elena, Lisa said, her voice soft. James told me about you, about what Victoria is doing. I am so sorry. Who are you? Nah. Who you? Elena asked. I was married to Victoria Hartford's oldest son, Thomas, for 4 years, 1998 to 2002. Thomas was not always the man he is now. He was kind once, creative. He wanted to be an architect, but Victoria destroyed him, turned him into her weapon, her fixer. What happened? Lisa stirred her coffee, not drinking it, just moving the spoon in circles. I tried to leave. Thomas had started drinking, started being cruel, and I realized I had made a mistake marrying into that family. So I filed for divorce, and Victoria came after me with everything. Lawsuit for alienation of affection, threatened my family, had someone break into my apartment. I woke up one night and found a dead cat on my doorstep with a note that said, "You're next." I was so terrified I dropped the divorce, took what little money I had, moved to Oregon, changed my name, disappeared. Why are you telling me this? Because I was a coward. I let her win. And you know what happened? Thomas stayed under her control. She turned him into what he is now. The man who forges documents, who threatens people, who destroys lives for her. If I had fought back 20 years ago, if I had exposed her, maybe he would not have become this. Maybe all the people he has hurt since then would have been safe. My cowardice has a body count. Elena felt sick. I am not brave. I came here to give up, to surrender. Lisa slid a folder across the table. Thick manila folder, worn at the edges. This is everything I should have used 20 years ago. Bank statements showing Victoria's offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Emails between her and Thomas proving witness intimidation in 3 different cases. Forged documents with Thomas's fingerprints on them. Photographs of Victoria meeting with people who later changed their testimony. I kept it all. I was too scared to use it then. But maybe you can use it now. Why would you give this to me? Because I am 52 years old and I still wake up at night terrified Victoria will find me. Because I have lived in hiding for 20 years. Because I do not want you to become me. And because if you take her down, maybe I can finally stop running. Elena looked at the folder, at the evidence, at the possibility. What do I do with this? You get a wire. You get her to confess on tape. And you use this evidence to prove she has done it before. Then you give it all to the police. You destroy her completely. Before she destroys you. She will never confess. She is too smart. She is not smart. She is arrogant. There is a difference. Arrogant people always think they are untouchable. Push the right buttons and she will brag. She will want you to know how clever she is, how powerful. Use that. Second false victory, Elena had hope again. Maybe she did not have to surrender. Maybe there was another way. But as she looked at the folder, she also felt fear. Because this was not just about revenge anymore. This was about putting herself in danger. Walking into a room with a woman who had destroyed lives. Wearing a wire, taking a risk that could get her killed. "I do not know if I can do this," Elena whispered. Lisa reached across the table, took her hand. "You can, because you have something I did not have. You have someone who knows the system." She looked at James. "You have resources, you have evidence, and you have something to fight for that is bigger than yourself." Elena put her hand on her belly, just barely starting to show. "My baby, your baby, and every woman who will come after you. Victoria Hartford has terrorized people for 40 years. It is time for that to end." Elena looked at James. "If I do this, if I wear a wire and try to trap Victoria, will you help me? Even after everything? Even after the manipulation and the lies?" James met her eyes. "I will help you. Not because of revenge, not because of Michael. Because you deserve justice, and because I was wrong to use you. Let me try to make it right." Elena looked at the folder, at Lisa, at James, at the impossible choice in front of her: surrender and survive, or fight and risk everything. She thought about her mother in that hospital bed, about the baby growing inside her, about Michael's smirk, about Victoria's cold voice on the phone. She picked up the folder. "Tell me how to do this." 3 days later, Grace was stable enough to leave the ICU, move to a regular room for observation. The doctor said she was lucky, that the heart attack could have killed her, but the damage was minimal if she avoided stress and followed treatment. Elena visited every day, sitting beside her bed, holding her hand, trying not to cry. "Stop looking so guilty," Grace said one afternoon. "I am fine. I am tough. Hartford family cannot kill me that easily." "Mom, you had a heart attack because of my decisions. Because I chose revenge over your safety. You chose to stop being a victim. That is different." Grace squeezed her hand. "I am proud of you, baby. Whatever you are planning, I am proud of you." "How did you know I am planning something?" Grace smiled weakly. "Because I raised you. Because I know that look in your eyes. You are not giving up. You are getting ready for war." "I am scared." "Good. Means you are smart. Only stupid people are not scared." Grace pulled Elena closer. "But listen to me. Being scared is okay. Being paralyzed by fear is not. You do what you need to do. I will be fine." Elena left the hospital and went directly to a coffee shop in Greenwich, where Detective Maria Harris from the NYPD Fraud Division was waiting. Detective Harris was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor, wearing a pantsuit and carrying a briefcase like she meant business. "Mrs. Brennan gave me the files," Detective Harris said, spreading them across the table between them. "This is solid evidence: bank fraud, witness tampering, document forgery. But to make charges stick against someone like Victoria Hartford, someone with her resources and connections, we need more than documents. We need a confession. Are you willing to wear a wire?" "Yes." "It is dangerous. If she finds the wire, if she suspects anything, she could hurt you. She has connections to people who do not ask questions. You understand that?" "I understand." "Victoria Hartford's annual winter gala is in 2 days at her estate in Connecticut. 200 guests, old money society. You would need an invitation." James, who had been sitting quietly beside Elena, pulled an envelope from his jacket. "Already secured. I was invited. I am bringing Elena as my date." Detective Harris looked at him skeptically. "And she will talk to Elena privately. Why?" "Because Elena is going to ask for a private meeting. Beg for mercy. Of course I am." Victoria cannot resist an opportunity to gloat. She will take Elena somewhere private to make her surrender terms. That is when we get the confession. Detective Harris pulled equipment from her briefcase. A tiny microphone that looked like a button, a transmitter smaller than a lipstick tube. "The mic goes in your necklace. We will swap one of the stones for this. The transmitter goes in your clutch. We will be parked outside in a van, recording everything. But Elena, you need to understand, you are not a trained operative. You are a pregnant woman walking into a hostile environment. If things go wrong, we cannot rush in to save you immediately. There will be a delay. You could get hurt. I know. Then why are you doing this? Elena put her hand on her barely showing belly. Because if I do not, she wins. And if she wins, she takes my baby. She takes everything. I would rather die fighting than live on my knees. Detective Harris nodded slowly. Okay then, let's wire you up. The day of Victoria's winter gala arrived cold and clear. Elena spent the morning getting ready, trying on dresses, discarding them, trying again. Nothing felt right. She was 14 weeks pregnant now, definitely showing if you look closely. She needed something that would hide it, or something that would show it strategically. She chose a simple black dress, Audrey Hepburn elegant, that skimmed her body without clinging. With the right posture, the pregnancy was invisible. But if she wanted to reveal it, all she had to do was turn to the side. Beatrice came to help with hair and makeup. You look terrified, she observed. I am terrified. Mr. Carter told me what you are doing. You are very brave. I am very stupid. Sometimes those are the same thing. Beatrice finished Elena's lipstick, classic red. There. You look like someone who could change the world. I just want to save my family. That is how changing the world starts. James picked her up at 5. The gala started at 6. They had 1 hour of driving to get to the Hartford estate in Greenwich. 1 hour for Elena to prepare mentally. 1 hour to decide if she was really going to do this. In the car, James was quiet. Finally, he said, You do not have to do this. We can turn around right now. I will help you disappear. Colorado, like you said, new identity, fresh start, you and your baby. Victoria will never find you. She will always find me. People like her always do. The only way to be safe is to destroy her completely. Or die trying. Or die trying. They drove in silence. The Hartford estate was exactly what Elena expected. Old money mansion on 20 acres. Circular driveway. Valets in white gloves. String quartet playing classical music. 200 guests in designer gowns and custom tuxedos. Ice sculptures. Champagne fountains. Wealth displayed so casually it became obscene. Elena took a deep breath, touched the necklace where the microphone was hidden, felt the transmitter in her clutch. Ready? James asked. No, let's go anyway. They walked up the steps together, through the massive front doors, into the marble entrance hall where a receiving line waited. And at the end of that line, Victoria Hartford. She stood in a Chanel suit the color of ice. Silver hair perfect, cold blue eyes assessing each guest like she was calculating their net worth. When she saw Elena, those eyes flickered with something. Surprise, amusement, contempt. Well, look who decided to join us. Victoria's voice carried that aristocratic accent, every syllable precise. And with such news, every head in the room turned, stared at Elena's visible pregnancy, at her audacity to show up here. Elena walked forward, calm. Hello, Victoria. Michael appeared from the crowd, Amber on his arm. His face went pale when he saw Elena. Amber looked confused, calculating, realizing something. Elena, Michael stammered. Is that pregnant? Elena turned slightly, letting the dress show her belly. Yes, Michael, 4 months, conceived in late August, before Amber, before the divorce. Congratulations. You are going to be a father. Amber's face showed devastation, realization, humiliation. She had thought she was special. She was just the next one. Guests murmuring, phones appearing, social media lighting up. Victoria's smile was ice. Please, everyone, enjoy the champagne. Elena and I need to have a private word. She gestured toward a hallway. This way, dear. James started to follow, but Victoria held up a hand. Alone, Mr. Carter. I am sure you understand. Family business. Elena followed Victoria through the mansion, down a hallway lined with family portraits, into a study, dark wood, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. The door closed with a heavy click. Victoria walked to the bar, poured herself bourbon, did not offer Elena anything. You have some nerve showing up here. I came to make a deal. You are in no position to make deals, dear. I will give Michael the authentication key. I will drop the Meridian platform. I will disappear. In exchange, you drop the lawsuit and the foreclosure on my mother's house. Victoria laughed, cold, cruel, the sound of someone who has never been told no. No. No? You think you are special? You think you are the first woman to stand up to me? I have destroyed 3 daughters-in-law before you. Smarter women, richer women, women with actual power. Lisa Brennan, pathetic creature, ran to Oregon and changed her name. Catherine Morrison tried to sue us, ended up bankrupt and working as a receptionist. Jennifer Walsh threatened to go to the press, woke up to find child services at her door with anonymous abuse reports. You are nobody, Elena. A working-class girl who got a lucky marrying up. And now you are crawling back, pregnant and pathetic, begging for scraps. Elena's voice shook, but she pushed forward, needed to keep Victoria talking. Then what do you want? I want you to sign full custody to Michael. I want you to sign an NDA saying you will never contact him or this family again. I want you to give me the authentication key, and then I want you to disappear. You can keep the baby if you want, but you will do it alone, with nothing, and you will never speak the Hartford name again. And if I refuse? Victoria leaned close, so close Elena could smell her perfume, expensive and floral and sickly sweet. Then your mother's heart gives out from stress. Your baby gets taken at birth. You go to prison for corporate espionage. I own judges, Elena. I own police. I own prosecutors. I own people you have not even met yet. I own this entire state. You cannot win against me. Why? Elena asked, genuine question in her voice. Why do you hate me so much? What did I ever do to you? Victoria's eyes went cold, colder than before. Because you made my son weak. Before you, Michael was hungry, ambitious. He wanted the family legacy. You made him soft, made him think love mattered more than power. The Hartford name has meant something for 4 generations. We have built empires, influenced elections, shaped this city. I will not let some nobody from Connecticut destroy that because she thinks she is owed something. I do not think I am owed anything, Victoria. I just think I am owed the truth. Like the truth about how you forged my mother's loan documents. Victoria smiled. Prove it. Or the truth about how you have been doing this for 20 years. Lisa Brennan, Catherine Morrison, Jennifer Walsh, 3 other women you destroyed the exact same way. Forged documents, fake witnesses, bought judges. The smile faded slightly. You have been doing research. I have been building a case. And here is the beautiful part, Victoria. I am not the one who has to prove anything, because in about 30 seconds, Detective Harris is going to walk through that door with a warrant for your arrest. This entire conversation has been recorded. Elena touched her necklace. The wire. Victoria's face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Shock, rage, calculation, panic. You little... The study door opened. Detective Harris with 2 uniformed officers from Greenwich PD. Victoria Hartford, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery in the 1st degree, witness intimidation, and elder abuse. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Victoria screamed as they handcuffed her composure finally cracking. This is illegal. That recording is inadmissible. I will have your badge. I will destroy all of you. Do you know who I am? Yes, ma'am, Detective Harris said calmly. You are under arrest. As Victoria was led out, still screaming about lawyers and connections and people she owned, the study door opened fully to reveal the party beyond. Every single guest had their phone out, filming, recording, posting to social media in real time. Victoria Hartford's empire crumbling live on Instagram. Elena walked out of the study, through the silent crowd. Every eye on her. She kept her head high, did not look down, walked straight through the mansion and out the front door. James was waiting beside the Bentley. He pulled her into an embrace. You did it. God, Elena, you actually did it. Is it over? she asked into his chest. The arrest is just the beginning. Trial will take months, but yes, the war is over. You won. Elena pulled back. I do not feel like I won. I feel like I survived. Sometimes those are the same thing. They got in the car and drove away from the Hartford estate, away from Victoria's screaming, away from the shocked guests, away from Michael, who stood on the steps looking lost and broken. Elena leaned her head against the window and watched Connecticut pass by in the darkness. She touched her belly where the baby was growing, whispered, "It is over. It is over, little one. You are safe now." But even as she said it, she knew it was not really over. Victoria would have lawyers. The trial would be brutal. The media attention would be insane, and Michael still existed, still might try for custody. The war was not over. This was just the end of one battle. But for tonight, she would take it. Victoria Hartford was denied bail. The judge, after reviewing the evidence of offshore accounts and witness intimidation, declared her a flight risk with means to flee the country. She was remanded to federal custody pending trial, sent to Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn to await her court date. The media went insane. Hartford matriarch arrested on fraud charges. Real estate dynasty crumbles as founder faces prison. Pregnant whistleblower takes down Manhattan's most powerful family. Elena's phone would not stop ringing. Reporters, book agents, movie producers. Everyone wanted her story. She ignored all of them, turned off her phone, hid in her Brooklyn apartment, and tried to breathe. Grace was released from the hospital 1 week after Victoria's arrest. Elena brought her to Brooklyn, set her up in the second bedroom of her apartment. They did not talk about what had happened. They just existed together, made tea, watched old movies, tried to pretend life was normal. But life was not normal and would never be normal again. Michael sold Hartford properties 3 weeks after Victoria's arrest. The authentication issue had come out during due diligence. Potential buyers saw the ticking time bomb. The company was valued at 60% less than the projected IPO valuation. Michael walked away with $120 million before taxes and legal fees, enough to live comfortably but not lavishly. His reputation was destroyed. Forbes pulled his feature. Industry groups stopped returning his calls. He called Elena once. I did not know, he said, about what my mother was doing, about the forgeries and threats. I swear I did not know. Yes, you did, Michael. I swear. You knew exactly who your mother was. You just did not care because it benefited you. Every woman she destroyed, every life she ruined, you stood by and let it happen because you got your trust fund. You are not a victim. You are complicit. What do I do now? You grow up, you get therapy, you learn that other people are not tools for your success, and you stay away from my child. Our child? No, my child. You gave up that right when you filed for custody while I was fighting for my life. When you tried to take my baby to punish me, you are not a father. You are just a sperm donor. Can I ever see them? Elena was quiet for a long time. Ask me again in 5 years if you can prove you are not your mother's son anymore. If you can show me you have actually changed and not just learned to perform change, then maybe we can talk about supervised visitation. Maybe, but do not hold your breath. She hung up, blocked his number. Michael moved to Vermont 1 month later, enrolled in therapy 3 times a week, started teaching business ethics at Green Mountain Community College, making $40,000 a year, living in a modest apartment, driving a used Honda. Whether the change was real or performative, Elena did not know, did not care, yet. Amber surprisingly reached out. They met for coffee in a neutral location, both nervous, both unsure what to say. I am sorry, Amber said, for everything. I thought you had left him. He told me you were separated when we started. I did not know you were still together. He lied to you, like he lied to me, like he lies to everyone. I know that now. Amber stirred her coffee, not drinking. I started a nonprofit for women who were exploited by powerful men, using my platform for something good instead of just posting bikini pictures. It is not much, but it is something. That is good, Amber, really. Can we ever be friends? I know that is crazy to ask, but no, Elena said gently. We cannot be friends, but we do not have to be enemies either. We were both used by the same man. That does not make us allies, but it does not make us enemies. Fair enough. They parted on civil terms. Not friends, not enemies, just two women who survived the same narcissist. James and Elena took things slowly, very slowly. He wanted more. She needed space. They compromised. Dinner twice a week. No pressure, no declarations, just seeing where things went. I care about you, James said one night over Thai food in her apartment, Grace discreetly giving them privacy by staying in her room. But I also know I manipulated you at the beginning. I used your pain for my revenge against Michael. That is not something you just forgive. No, Elena agreed, it is not. But you also gave me the platform to fight back when I had nothing. You protected my mother. You helped me when you did not have to. So I do not know what we are, James. I do not know if I can ever fully trust you. But I know I do not hate you. And right now, that is enough. That is enough for me, too. They did not kiss, did not do more than hold hands sometimes. Just built something slow and careful and honest. Meridian launched without the gala fanfare. Quiet, professional, word of mouth. Small and mid-sized real estate investors who were tired of opaque systems and inflated valuations. The ones who had been burned by companies like Hartford Properties. Elena hired carefully, built a team of analysts who actually cared about accuracy over profit, set up the company structure to be transparent, auditable, verifiable. Everything Hartford Properties was not. Revenue was modest the first year, enough to break even, enough to prove the concept worked, enough to keep going. Forbes called her for an interview, the woman who took down the Hartford empire. She declined. I did not take down an empire. I just stopped letting them crush me. That is not the same thing. At 5 months pregnant, Elena stopped working full-time. Doctor's orders, her blood pressure was still high, risk of preeclampsia. She needed bed rest, or at least significant rest. James rented a small house in the Hamptons for June and July, just until the baby comes. Quiet, private, ocean air. It will be good for you. Grace came too, cooked, fussed, made sure Elena actually rested instead of working on her laptop in bed. One evening in late June, Elena sat on the beach watching the sunset. Belly huge now, baby kicking constantly. Grace sat beside her in a folding chair, knitting something small and blue. Are you scared? Grace asked. Terrified. Good. That means you will be a good mother. The ones who are not scared are the dangerous ones. What if I mess this up? What if I am so focused on being strong that I forget to be soft? What if I raise this baby to think love is weakness? Grace set down her knitting, took Elena's hand. You will not, because you know the difference between strength and cruelty. Victoria did not know that. Michael did not know that. But you do. You know how to be strong and kind, fierce and loving. You will teach your baby both. I hope so. I know so. On July 3rd, early morning, Elena's water broke. James drove her to Southampton Hospital. Grace rode in the back seat, calm and steady, exactly what Elena needed. 7 hours of labor, exhausting, painful. James held her hand the entire time, did not leave even when she screamed at him, even when she said terrible things, just stayed. At 2:47 in the afternoon, Hope Hartford Vance was born. 6 pounds, 7 ounces, dark hair like Elena, green eyes like Michael, perfect tiny fingers that gripped Elena's thumb with surprising strength. Elena held her daughter and cried, not from pain, from relief, from joy, from the overwhelming realization that she had made it through. She had survived. Her baby was here and healthy and safe. Hi, little one, Elena whispered. I am your mom, and I promise you I will always look up. I will never let anyone make you small. I will teach you to be fierce and kind, and to never apologize for taking up space. Hope yawned, a tiny perfect yawn, and Elena fell completely in love. Grace held her granddaughter and cried too. She is perfect, baby. Absolutely perfect. James stood back, giving them space, but Elena saw the emotion in his eyes. Come here, she said. Come meet her properly. He approached carefully, like he was afraid he might break something. Elena placed Hope in his arms. He held her like she was made of glass, staring at her face with wonder. "Hi, Hope," he whispered. "I am Jay. I am not sure what I am to you yet, but I am going to try to be someone good, someone worthy of being in your life." Elena watched him with her daughter and felt something shift in her chest. Maybe trust, maybe love, maybe just the beginning of both. The first 6 weeks were brutal. No sleep, constant feeding, diapers, crying, the fog of new motherhood. But Grace was there, helping, guiding, taking night shifts when Elena was too exhausted to function. James came by most days, brought food, helped with dishes, held Hope so Elena could shower. Asked nothing in return, just showed up. "You do not have to do this," Elena said one afternoon when he was doing laundry while she fed Hope. "You do not owe me anything." "I know, I want to be here, if you will let me." "Okay then, stay." At Hope's 2-month checkup, the pediatrician asked about the father. "Is he involved?" "The biological father is not involved by mutual agreement," Elena said carefully. "But there is someone else, someone who is choosing to be involved. Does that count?" "Family is who shows up," the doctor said. "Sounds like you have family." Michael sent child support every month without being asked. $2,500. Not required by any court order, just sent. Elena put it in a college fund for Hope. Did not touch it. He sent one email when Hope was 3 months old. "I saw the birth announcement you posted. She is beautiful. Thank you for letting me know she exists. I hope someday I can meet her. But I understand if that day never comes. I am working on being better, whether you believe that or not." Elena did not respond, but she did not block him either. Left the door open just a crack. Maybe someday. Not now, but someday. Victoria's trial happened when Hope was 4 months old. Elena was subpoenaed to testify. She sat in the witness stand with Hope in Grace's arms in the gallery and told the truth. All of it. The forgeries, the threats, the heart attack, the custody petition. Victoria's lawyers tried to make Elena look like a vengeful ex-wife, tried to suggest she had fabricated everything. But the evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, forged documents with Thomas Brennan's fingerprints, emails, recorded confession. Victoria was found guilty on all counts, sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. Thomas Brennan was charged separately, facing 10 to 15 years. As Victoria was let out of the courtroom, she looked directly at Elena. No emotion, no rage, just cold assessment, like she was looking at a problem she had miscalculated. Elena looked back, did not look away, did not look down. Victoria was the first to break eye contact. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. "Miss Vance, how do you feel about the verdict?" "I feel like justice was served. That is all." "Do you have a message for other women in similar situations?" Elena looked directly at the cameras, thought about her mother's words, about Hope in Grace's arms, about every woman who had ever signed papers looking down. Yes, you are not alone, you are not powerless, and you do not have to stay small to stay safe. It will be hard, it will be scary, you might lose things, but you will gain yourself, and that is worth everything. She walked away before they could ask more questions, got in the Bentley where James was waiting, went home to her daughter. 2 years after signing divorce papers without looking up, Elena Hartford Vance sat on the floor of her Brooklyn brownstone, building towers out of blocks with her 18-month-old daughter. "Higher, Mama," Hope demanded, her vocabulary expanding daily, her personality already fierce and joyful, and completely her own. "If we go higher, it will fall," Elena warned. "Fall fun." Hope knocked over the tower deliberately, dissolving into giggles. Elena laughed, real genuine laughter, the kind she did constantly now, the kind that had been missing for so many years of her marriage. "Okay, let's build again." The apartment had changed in 2 years, still modest compared to Michael's old penthouse, but comfortable, real, lived in. Photos on the walls showed Elena's new life, Grace holding newborn Hope, Elena and James at Meridian's office opening, Hope's first birthday party, Hope's first steps captured on video and printed into a photo. The doorbell rang. James entered with takeout bags using the key Elena had given him 6 months ago. A big step. a statement of trust. Brought Thai. Hope, come get noodles. JJ. Hope toddled over on sturdy legs, arms up, demanding to be picked up. James scooped her up, spinning her until she giggled. They had settled into a routine over 2 years, James around most days, sleeping over sometimes. Part of their lives, but not rushing anything. Taking it slow, building something real. They ate on the floor because the dining table was currently covered in Meridian files. They kept meaning to get a second table, but never got around to it. Grace called, Elena said, wiping noodles off Hope's face. She is coming next week for Hope's birthday party. Good. How is she feeling? Strong, healthy. Doctor says her heart is completely recovered. She might outlive all of us, James smiled. Knowing Grace, she probably will. He paused. I got an email today from Michael. Elena's hand stilled. What did he want? To meet Hope. He says he has been in therapy for 2 years, sold everything, moved to Vermont, teaching business ethics at a community college, making $35,000 a year, living in a studio apartment. He says he is not the man he was. Do you believe him? I do not know. People can change, or they can get better at performing change. Hard to tell which. Elena looked at Hope, who was determinedly trying to pick up noodles with chopsticks like an adult, making a mess, not caring. What do you think I should do? I think that is your decision, not mine. But whatever you decide, I will support it. Elena was quiet for a long time. Not yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. Hope is too young to understand. And I need to see more evidence that Michael has actually changed. 2 years is good. 5 years is better. If he is still in Vermont in 5 years, still teaching, still in therapy, then maybe we can talk about supervised visits. Maybe. That seems fair. Is it? I do not know anymore. Is it fair to keep a child from their father? Is it fair to let someone back in who might hurt us again? Where is the line between protection and punishment? James set down his food, looked at her seriously. You are not punishing Michael. You are protecting Hope. There is a difference. If Michael has really changed, he will understand that. He will be patient. He will earn his way back. And if he has not changed, then keeping him away is exactly the right thing. Elena nodded. You are right, but it still feels heavy sometimes. Like I am playing bond with someone else's relationship. You are being a mother. That is different than playing all. You are making the hard choices because that is what mothers do. Hope spilled noodles down her front. Elena cleaned her up, gave her a bath, put her to bed. The nighttime routine was sacred. Stories, songs, cuddles. Hope fought sleep like it was her enemy, but eventually her eyes drooped closed. Elena stood in the doorway watching her daughter sleep, tiny chest rising and falling, perfect peace on her face. James appeared beside her. Can I ask you something? Sure. Where do you see us, you and me, in a year, 5 years? Elena was quiet, honest. I do not know. 2 years ago, I thought I had my whole life planned. I was Mrs. Michael Hartford. I was going to have 2.5 kids and a house in Connecticut and a marriage that looked good in photos. Then it all fell apart. Now I am okay with not knowing. I like what we have. I am not ready for marriage. Maybe not ever. But I am also not ready for less than this. Does that make sense? It makes perfect sense. You are okay with that? With uncertainty? Most men want labels and commitments and James stopped her with a gentle hand on her arm. I spent 20 years building my company, making strategic plans, controlling outcomes, being certain about everything. It was exhausting and empty. What we have is uncertain, yes, but it is also real. I will take real over certain any day. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. Thank you for staying, even when I pushed you away, even when I did not make it easy. Thank you for letting me stay, even when you did not have to, even when I did not deserve it. They stood together, watching Hope sleep, and Elena felt something she had not felt in years. Contentment. Not happiness exactly, not perfect bliss, just contentment. The feeling of being exactly where she was supposed to be. Later that night, after Hope was deep asleep, Elena and James stood on the roof of her building. Their spot. where they had stood many times over the past 2 years, talking about everything and nothing. The city stretched out below them, millions of lights, millions of lives, all that possibility in chaos and beauty. Victoria's parole hearing is next month, James said, 3 years into a 7-year sentence. Good behavior. I know. Are you going to make a statement? I do not know. Part of me wants to. Part of me thinks I said everything I needed to say 2 years ago. What she does with the rest of her life is her problem, not mine. You have grown. I have survived. There is a difference. Elena looked out at the city. I used to think winning meant destroying your enemies, making them pay, getting revenge. But I do not think that anymore. Winning is just being here, standing on my own roof, my daughter asleep downstairs, my mother healthy, my company growing. That is winning, not revenge, not victory, just life. That is very zen of you. Elena laughed. I have been reading a lot of parenting books. They are surprisingly philosophical. They stood in comfortable silence. I love you, James said. Not a question, not a demand, just a statement. I know. You do not have to say it back. I know, but I do love you. In my own complicated trust issues still healing kind of way. I love you. When he kissed her then, gentle and sweet and full of promise. Not passion exactly. Something deeper. Something that felt like coming home. When they pulled apart, Elena smiled. That was nice. Just nice. Very nice. Extremely nice. Best kiss I have had in at least 2 years. That is a very low bar considering you have not kissed anyone else in 2 years. True, but still. They laughed and Elena thought about how much had changed. How 2 years ago she was signing papers, looking down, convinced her life was over. And now she was here, standing on a roof, kissing a man who had started as her enemy and become her partner, raising a daughter alone but not lonely, building a company that mattered, living a life that was hers, not perfect, never perfect, but real, in hers, and that was enough. Despite telling James she probably would not attend, when the date of Victoria's parole hearing arrived 3 years after the arrest, Elena found herself driving to Federal Correctional Institution Danbury in Connecticut. Hope was with Grace. James had offered to come, but Elena refused. This was something she needed to do alone. Closure. The hearing room was small and sterile. Fluorescent lights, cheap paneling. Nothing like the opulent settings where Victoria Hartford used to hold court. Victoria sat at a table in a prison uniform too large for her frame. Her silver hair was thinner, face gaunt without makeup. She had aged a decade in 3 years. Prison does that, even to wealthy people. Their eyes met across the room. Victoria showed no emotion. Elena felt nothing except a vague sense of completion, like finishing a book you stopped enjoying but needed to see how it ended. The parole board asked if Elena wanted to make a statement. Elena stood and read from her notes. 3 years ago, Victoria Hartford orchestrated harassment, fraud, and intimidation against me and my family. She forged documents, threatened violence, tried to take custody of my unborn child. She did these things because she views people as assets to control or destroy, never as human beings. I do not forgive her. Forgiveness is not mine to give for crimes against my mother, against Lisa Brennan, against every woman she hurt. But I also do not hate her anymore. Hate requires energy I would rather spend on my daughter. Whether you grant parole or deny it, Victoria Hartford no longer has power over my life. That is my only statement. Victoria's public defender made his case. Model prisoner, completed programs, shown remorse. The board deliberated 30 minutes. Parole denied. Mrs. Hartford will serve her full sentence. Review again in 18 months. Victoria's face remained neutral, but Elena saw the flicker of disappointment. As Elena left, Victoria called out, "Elena, I am sorry." Elena stopped, turned, studied Victoria's face, looking for sincerity or manipulation. Could not tell. "I do not know if you mean that," Elena said carefully, "but I hope someday you actually understand what you did. Not because you want parole, because you see other people as human beings. I hope that for you." She walked out. In the parking lot, Elena sat in her car and cried. Not from sadness, not from vindication, just release. It was finally, completely, truly over. She called James. It is over. They denied parole. How do you feel? Empty, relieved, all of it at once. That evening, Elena came home to find Hope playing with James, building block castles. Her daughter ran over, threw arms around her legs. Mama, I make castle. Grace emerged from the kitchen with dinner. Made comfort food. Your grandmother's lasagna. They ate together, this assembled family that worked perfectly for them. After Hope was asleep, Elena told James about the hearing. Victoria said she was sorry. I do not know if she meant it, but it does not matter anymore. She is not my problem. James pulled her close. You are free now. Really free. Yes, finally. That night, Elena opened her laptop and started writing. About the conference room, about signing papers, about the journey from victim to survivor to someone who was just living her life. She wrote for hours, purging emotions onto the page. When she finished, she checked on Hope, sleeping peacefully. You will never know how hard I fought for you, Elena whispered to her daughter. And that is the point. You get to grow up safe and loved. That is my gift to you. She went to bed, finally ready to sleep without nightmares. 5 years after signing divorce papers without looking up, Elena stood on a stage at the Brooklyn Museum, about to give a talk called The Cost of Fighting Back. She wore a simple black dress, no designer labels, just confidence. The room held 300 people, investors, entrepreneurs, women who had read her book, Looking Up, How I Stopped Being a Victim and Started Being a Person, which had spent 32 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. The book had resonated because it was honest. It showed the cost of fighting back, not just the victory. Good evening, Elena began. 5 years ago, I signed divorce papers without looking up because I was ashamed. What I did not know was that sometimes you have to pretend to surrender before you can win, and sometimes winning does not look like you thought it would. She spoke for 40 minutes about the journey, the pregnancy, the billionaire, Victoria's cruelty, the wire, the arrest, Hope's birth. But she also spoke about the Payton. My mother almost died. I spent $100,000 in legal fees. I have post-traumatic stress disorder. I cannot sleep in unfamiliar places. I have panic attacks from certified mail. Justice happened, but justice does not equal healing. Those are different things. After the talk, Elena signed books for 2 hours. A young woman named Jennifer approached, hands shaking. Can you sign it to Jennifer? My husband is like Michael, not physically abusive, but he makes me feel so small. I am scared to leave. Elena put down her pen and gave Jennifer her full attention. Being scared is normal and smart, but being scared is not the same as being trapped. You have choices. They might all be hard choices, but they are choices. What if I fail? Then you fail and try again, because you know what is worse than failing. Spending your whole life wondering what could have been if you had been brave enough to try. Jennifer wiped her eyes. Thank you. Elena went home to find Hope, now 6 years old, running to greet her with drawings from school. Mama, look, I drew our family. The picture showed 4 stick figures. Elena, Hope, Grace, and James labeled JJ. Miss Anderson said, draw our family, and I was not sure if JJ counts, but family is people who love you, right? Elena's throat tightened. Absolutely right. Family is exactly who you say it is. James emerged from the kitchen. I burned dinner. Do not ask how. Grace appeared. I ordered pizza. Crisis averted. They ate together, laughing about Hope's school stories, discussing Meridian's expansion, making weekend plans. After Hope was in bed, Elena and James stood on their roof, their traditional spot. She called you family, Elena said. I heard. How does that make you feel? Terrified, happy, both. Michael called yesterday. He wants to visit next month. Meet Hope. I said yes. James was quiet. How do you feel about that? Ready, he has been teaching for 5 years, therapy for 5 years, never misses child support. Hope deserves to make her own decision about him when she is older. James kissed her forehead. Marry me. Elena laughed. What? Marry me, because Hope drew me in her family picture. Because I love you and I want this to be permanent. That is the worst proposal ever. I know. But will you? Elena looked at this man who had become essential to her life. Yes, small wedding, just family, and we keep separate office spaces. Deal. They kissed, real and imperfect, imperfect. When do we tell Hope? Tomorrow. Let's make it special. They stood together, watching the city, holding hands, ready for the next chapter. The wedding was in a small Brooklyn garden on a perfect September afternoon. 30 people. Grace officiated, taking her role seriously. Hope was flower girl, scattering rose petals with intense dedication. Michael came. Elena had invited him carefully. He sat in the back, cried quietly, left right after without intruding. Before leaving, he approached. Thank you for letting me come. For letting me meet Hope last month. She is amazing. So much like you. We raised her, Elena corrected, gesturing to James and Grace. You are part of that village now, even if a small part. Michael nodded through tears. I do not deserve that grace. People do not have to deserve grace. That is why it is grace. He left. Elena felt at peace. The ceremony was short. Grace read a poem about resilience and building new things from broken pieces. Hope stood between Elena and James, holding both their hands. Elena's vows came first. James, 5 years ago, you gave me a car ride and complicated motivations that were not pure. You were not a white knight, but you stayed when I pushed you away. I am not marrying you because you saved me. I am marrying you because you let me save myself and stuck around to see how it turned out. That is real love. James's voice was thick with emotion. Elena, I do not deserve you, but I promise to keep trying, to keep showing up, to love Hope like my own, to look up when things get hard. That is all I have. My commitment to keep trying forever. They kissed. Everyone applauded. Hope threw rose petals everywhere, landing in champagne glasses, her happiness infectious. The reception was simple. Thai food from their favorite restaurant, Grace's Spotify playlist, dancing on grass, Hope running wild, dress grass-stained within an hour. As sunset came, Elena stood watching Hope play. James joined her. Happy? Actually happy. Not pretending, just happy. No fears? Oh, lots of fears. I am afraid of 1,000 things, but I am also happy, and those two things can coexist. You do not have to be completely healed to be whole. Grace approached for a toast. Everyone gathered. To Elena, Grace said strongly, who taught me that strength is about getting back up, that love is choosing each other daily, that victory is building a life worth living. To Elena, who finally learned to look up. To Elena, everyone echoed. Elena raised her glass. To everyone who signed papers, looking down and is learning to look up. To everyone who thinks they cannot do it. You can. You are worth it. Later, on their roof one final time, Elena and James stood watching the city. Tell me something true, Elena said. I think we are both broken and clinging to each other. But I also think what we built is real. Not a fairy tale, but ours. And that makes it more valuable. Good answer. They kissed gently. Thank you, Elena said, for not giving up on me. Thank you for letting me in, for trusting me, for making me family. Elena thought about the woman she used to be, the woman who signed papers looking down. That woman was gone, replaced by someone who knew how to fight and heal and love and look up. As they walked inside, Elena paused at the glass door, looked at her reflection, made eye contact with herself, saw someone strong, someone whole, someone who refused to be small. She smiled. She was not the woman who looked down anymore. She was the woman who looked up, who met the world's gaze head on, who built a life worth living from ashes. And that made all the difference. 10 years later, Elena woke to Hope, now 11, arguing with James about getting a phone. Meridian had gone public successfully. Grace was 77 and healthy. Michael still taught in Vermont, seeing Hope twice yearly. Victoria lived in Arizona, no longer Elena's problem. That morning, Elena made coffee, kissed her family, and went to write. An email from Jennifer. I left. It took 3 years, but I left. I have my own life now. Thank you for showing me it was possible. Elena smiled and opened a new document. Chapter 1, The Morning Routine. This is the story of an ordinary Tuesday. Nothing dramatic happens, but it is mine. My Tuesday, my life, my choice to show up. And that is everything. She kept writing. Because some stories are not about winning or losing. Some stories are just about living. And that was the most important story of all.